Welcome back to the Leadership Growth Blueprint podcast, the show for leaders, founders, and leadership experts who care less about tactics and more about how great leadership actually works in the real world. On this podcast, we explore how leaders think under pressure, how coaches drive real change, and what it takes to build authority and trust at the executive level. Today's conversation is with the one and only Joe, a communication expert whose focus is primarily on sales presentation and capturing an audience with public speaking. Now, this is a thoughtful conversation about leadership, communication, human behavior, and the realities of change at the top. Now, with that being said, Joe, we appreciate you being on, and I'll go ahead and pass the mic over to you. Thank you.
Hi, Jordan. Thanks for introducing me. My name is Joe Dolce, though. You didn't mention my last name, and I want to make sure it's mentioned. So there you go.
Absolutely. Mr. Dolce, how would you describe the work you do in leadership and communication and executive development for someone hearing about this for the first time?
But it's simple. I'm a presentation coach, so I teach people how to speak in public to an audience of 1,000 or 10,000. And I also do media training, which means I help people speak to camera, speak to media, talk to a journalist, express themselves probably more succinctly than you would if you were doing a presentation. Media requires synthesis of thought, understanding of uh, how you talk to a journalist, how you look at a camera, how you look at your Instagram, how you are on your Instagram, as a matter of fact. So that's it's similar but a very different process. And then I also do some executive development and leadership coaching with certain people if we have the right connection.
What led you to enter into that field, becoming a communication coach?
I was a journalist for much of my career, most of my career. And when I left about 15 years ago, it felt like a natural progression since I write and I tell stories. I have to when you're a journalist or a magazine editor, you have to capture people's attention quickly, and you have to make it very clear what they're about to engage in for the next few minutes or hours as they read. Similarly, in a presentation, it is very hard to capture people's attention these days, as you might know, because we are all being pulled in many, many directions. So there are many things you can do as a speaker to grab the attention of your audience and then hold it as you go through your presentation. That's very important. I also do this, so I do it with executives and teams, all sorts of different levels of teams. And I also do it with people who are, I do pitch coaching for people who are out there raising funds for their early stage or middle stage or late stage new businesses, startups.
If you had to pick one clientele, who would be your favorite? Executives, teams, or they all?
I don't think like that at all.
Okay.
It's really the challenge of helping people connect with their audiences, right? That's the challenge. It doesn't matter who you are, but how do you grab that audience's attention and then maintain it throughout what you're doing? How are you persuasive? How do you tell stories? How do you open quickly? How do you end strongly? How do you filter some of the mushy language that we normally use in this kind of a conversation so that you have impact? And how are you memorable? That's really important, especially if you're speaking to a large group where lots of things are going on. Well, you know what I mean. Being memorable is very important and very difficult.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
What approach or what do you feel like separates you from everyone else when it comes to being memorable? What are some frameworks and methodologies you like to use for your clients? When you are saying we need to grab attention from the audience, we need to understand how to open, how to close, how to keep attention throughout a 30-minute presentation or a 5-minute presentation. Are there
Yes.
specific tips and tricks or mental frameworks or mental modes that you like to teach or you like to follow?
Well, I think most people are nervous when they're public speakers, when they're public speaking. And there's a reason for that, which is that really almost none of us have been taught how to do it. So there are certain things, certain techniques, certain tools, let's say, that you can deploy. Okay. And what I do is I give people the whole tool chest, show them many different options, and then we try out different things. So you find what works best for Jordan.
Mm.
And that really helps because you need to be authentic. You need to be comfortable what you're saying, and you need to say it in your language. For example, I used to, in the beginning, I would write speeches for people, But I stopped doing that really quickly because I found that co-creation is much more effective for people to really own the words in their language and what's coming from them truly. I mean, I'll say something one way, you'll say it differently. You'll say it a different way. And I found that people were trying to get into my voice. And that's exactly what I don't want to do. I want to enable your voice so that your authenticity and your passion come through. So there are a lot of tools you could use. For example, if you are opening a presentation, there's lots of ways to open. You can open with a fact. You can open with a surprising, counterintuitive fact, even better. You can open with a personal story. Many people in business don't want to start with a personal story, but it's a very effective way of grabbing people's attention. We like story. That story has to be calibrated. It has to be at a certain length. It has to have a point. Best if the presentation circles around back to that story a few times. You know, presentations need drama. Most people don't realize that. They don't want to talk about their struggle to get where they got, or things that went well, or things that didn't go well. Even more interesting.
Mhm.
So there's lots of different ways to take information and make it interesting. Like data, a lot of people just put up the slide, read off the numbers. They don't give us context for the numbers. They don't tell us the story behind the numbers. And it's actually usually it's very interesting to find the story behind the numbers. But boy, that takes some work. That's what I do.
Okay. When you're working with these clients, is there a specific set of problems that they come to you with, but that really isn't the true constraint behind their ability to speak publicly? Like, as an example, I'm a new client. Mr. Joe, I think I struggle with ABC. But with your experience, with your expertise, you say, Jordan, yes, you kind of struggle with that, but really the root cause is actually XYZ over here.
Jordan, everybody thinks they speak with too many filler words. They're concerned about their ums, their uhs, their okays, their reallys. We all have a bunch of words we use in spoken language. It's really not the problem unless it's used so frequently it creates interference between me and you, the listener and the speaker. So that's really not the problem. Really, the most of the problem is insecurity,
Mm.
not knowing how to craft the content so that you are really bringing people into the story, right? Not knowing how to change the theme. Because really, if you're doing a 20-minute presentation, that theme should change every few minutes to keep the audience awake. And it also keeps you awake. It's much more interesting to do a presentation like that. But the real thing that most people are anxious, and I try and say to them, and I think it maybe gets through 30% of the time. The audience actually wants to hear what you have to say. So it's not about your anxiety or your nervousness or the way you sweat. It's about what you have to give to that audience. And if you can do that mental flip, which is not inherently simple, but if you can make that inherent flip, it calms you right down. It's like, you're right. I do have some things to say. I have thought about this. I do have some ideas about this. That really makes a big difference in the consciousness of the speaker.
Absolutely. And I think you and I were talking about this earlier, but personally, my belief is that when you are self conscious of how you sweat, your filler words, maybe you not speaking with enough authority, that's almost a selfish mindset to have. Because, like you said, the audience is there to listen to you. You have value. You're on stage for a reason. You're presenting something for a reason. And the fact that you're thinking about yourself, that's selfish. Like, no, just do
It's
your job and
well,
give value.
you're looking at it as a thing of selfish. It's really just it's nervousness. It's anxiety. It really is. I don't make it personal. Okay. I think we all suffer from that. I have worked with people
I,
at the top of really big companies all the way down, and I have seen everybody get anxious and nervous. I've had CEOs cry in my
wow.
presence because they feel so vulnerable having to do this. Got to remember, most people in their jobs aren't they don't they don't rise because they're great public speakers or great managers or great communicators. They rise because they have a skill or they've done certain things right or they've made the right political moves. So when they get to that position of leadership, it's a challenge at first. And it makes sense. It is a challenge. So that's what I try to do. I try to accelerate the movement forward so that people can grow into that without letting the communication or the presentation get in the way.
So, with that being said, are there, besides keeping the focus on the audience and your clients realizing that you have something valuable, make sure you give value and keep your attention on them. Besides that mental framework, are there any other tips and tricks that you would share with the audience or maybe share with your clients to calm
So
the nervous
many, there's just
systems?
so many
Okay.
tips and tricks. And they all sound rather obvious. Some of them are taken from acting because actors are they are presenting, right? So a couple of things
100%.
are when you get onto the stage or wherever you're standing, even in a boardroom, hold your position for a few seconds. Just stand there, breathe, take a deep breath, greet different people in the audience to your left, to the center, to the right, with your eyes. Make eye contact. Choose some friendly faces that you like because you're going to keep using them to make sure you're bringing everyone in. People want to feel acknowledged, right? And if you're picking one person in row C, all of that part of the audience is going to feel seen. So it's a very simple thing to do, but takes a little time. What do you do with your hands?
Mm.
That's a big question for a lot of people. It really is. They feel so awkward. So hold a pen if that works for you. Hold a clicker if you need to do that. Or just hold your hands somewhere between your neck and your belly button. That's called, somebody put this name on it, the zone of power. But your hands are part of what animates you, right? Make sure your voice hits the last person in the row. If you're on a screen, look at the green dot where your camera is if you really have to make an important point, which I just did. I don't know if you noticed a difference or not.
We did.
It's difficult. It's not easy. It's not intuitive. It's not natural, but it makes a difference to the audience, especially, but you have to use that mindfully because you need to watch what's also happening on the screen. So there are many, many, many tips like that, using your body, using your voice, using your language, using a pause.
Mm.
Sometimes I ask people to take a sip at the right time, especially if you have something important to say. That was a bullshit sip, okay, that I just gave you. But people watch and they wait. They hold on to those sort of things.
Pauses are so powerful. It took me a long time to understand the true power of it. In my early 20s, I'm in my mid 20s now. In my early 20s, I just
You're
wanted to
so young,
fly
Jordan.
by everything, just say everything a million miles an hour. I really struggled with taking verbal pauses, but I've realized through listening to powerful communicators and through my own normal conversations that the power of the pause is true. It's a real thing. It
Well,
really
you're
does
very young to
draw
have
the.
figured that out, let me tell you, because most people don't figure it out until I talk to them about it. And then it has to be, but the thing is this, like, I mean, you could listen to this podcast, and I assure you that nothing I tell you is going to stick because all of this requires practice. It requires building uh, muscle memory, communication muscle memory. I don't know. I don't have a name for it, but it does require you integrating it into your repertoire behavior so that you don't have to think about it, right? If you're thinking about it, it's getting in the way.
Mm.
That metacognition is not what you want. You want to have this so run through that you start to it just feels natural. That's also a key to a great presenter. So I have to tell you, and I say this to people all the time, Barack Obama, great orator, he gave the same speech like 3,000 times. You realize that, right? When you're on the campaign trail, you're doing the same thing every single stop, many times a day. I'm not saying he's not a great orator because he is, and he knows how to use all of his oratorical skills beautifully. He's a master.
Mhm.
But that practice and that repetition is super helpful. So, when I work with clients who are doing presentations, for example, and they're doing conferences, I will remind them that they should give the same presentation at every conference. Chances are it's not the same audience. I mean, you don't want to repeat to the same audiences, obviously, but if you're doing that thing, it's very useful. One presentation, give it, give it again. It gets better over time. Yeah.
As you're
But
talking about.
also, I have to say, know your audience. No, it's very, very important if there is a difference in the audience, like if one you're talking to your fellow CEOs and the other you're talking to a team, obviously there's a different level and it has to be adjusted. But the content can essentially be the same. Always know who your audience is, though. Very important.
Completely agree. Yeah, but the core principles should remain the same. No, 100%. Typically, how long would you say that it typically takes for someone to get significantly better? Like, I have a big presentation coming up. It's in, I don't know, 4, 6 months. Do you think I can make a substantial improvement in the next 4 to 6 months by working with you?
Absolutely. So I really don't, I can't answer that question generically, but I will tell you that the average TED speaker, once they have created their presentation, this is the old 18-minute presentation. How many hours of preparation, how many hours of practice do you think they give? Go through.
For an 18-minute talk?
hmm
10?
How about 100?
Okay.
Okay, that's the average, 100 hours of preparation and practice. Okay, so Jordan, you better practice that speech. Okay, you better get it written. We can work on it together. You can call me, but you're going to need a lot more than 10 hours. How long is the presentation?
Well, it's 18 minutes, right?
I don't know. You're doing a TED Talk?
Well, I was just giving an example. I don't have an
I see. I
actual.
thought you were giving a presentation in 6 months. Oh, okay. I think it's really important to listen. If you have something done ahead of time, it's really good to review it often. You want it so that even if you get lost or forget what you're saying, and we all do, it happens all the time, you also know there's another place you can jump back in really quickly. That really only happens with practice because you don't want to have to you're not thinking about your pages, right?
Right.
But you are thinking about your themes and your topics. And I usually will keep a bullet point list on my phone as I'm talking rather than the speech itself. So what I like to do is know my topics. Like say I have a 20-minute presentation and I'm talking about 10 different things, right? I don't need to know for me at this point, I don't need to know every single word or know a sentence. I need to know the topics. I need to know what I'm going to be talking about. That really helps. So it allows me a lot more spontaneity. So I like to be an informal speaker. I don't like to be a formal speaker. Okay. I like people to interrupt me. I prefer to have a conversation than a presentation. That's me. Not everybody likes that. Some are very authoritarian, some speakers. You're going to do
Right.
it my way. You're not going to interrupt me. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to see all the slides in the order I presented them. You know those speakers, and they need to do it their way. Okay. I prefer a more informal way. So that's how I like to organize my thinking. Does that make sense?
No, 100%. And I think that does help. Trying to have your entire presentation on your phone and you read it verbatim is a
Forget it.
nightmare.
That's
Exactly.
not
It's
a
a
present.
nightmare.
That's not a presentation. No, I'm not letting you go if that's how you think you're done. If that's what you think you're done with, you're not going.
Right. Are there any core philosophies or strong beliefs that you have when it comes to working with your clients on their communication skills and their presentation skills?
Well, I think the main thing is helping them find their voice, helping them find what they really want to say, number one, and then helping them say it in a way that feels true to them. That's important. It's really important. It's interesting. Sometimes people need to project more authority. So we work on that. I once had a client who had to tell his entire very large organization that they weren't getting their bonuses this year. And the communications people called me up and they said, "Would you please help him with empathy? He doesn't express empathy.
Mm.
It's not natural for him." He was a CFO. Not that all CFOs don't have empathy, but he was going to stick right to the data and the numbers. And we really had to work on helping him get into the mindset. And even though he was one of the people who was not getting his bonus, okay, get into the mindset of, oh, wow, thousands of people are not getting their bonus this year. How do I help you absorb this information? That's quite interesting. So there's so many different cases. Everybody has a different style, a different tick, if you will, a different kind of anxiety. I had one client who he just insisted I fly to Toronto and that we rehearse for 2 days straight. We did the same speech for 8 hours a day because he wanted to be flawless. And I really admire that. I really admired that.
Hmm.
It was a difficult day. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah,
It's hard to
I
pay
can imagine.
attention. I needed a
Yeah.
lot of coffee.
Exactly.
But good for him. He knew he knew what he wanted to deliver, and he knew that he was not a natural. Very interesting. He knew everything about rhetorical style. He was a very educated, well-read person. He had read Marcus Aurelius. He really understood some of the foundational, he read Plato even, to understand some of the foundational basics of rhetoric, and he could recite them, but he wasn't a great speaker. And that's the other thing. It's like you can read, there's a bunch of books out there about being a great speaker, and you can read all of them and still be a bad speaker
Right.
because it only happens in the moment. It only happens when we're doing it.
Right.
Really does. Really
And
does.
through repetition and practice. If there was one thing that you can drive home
Here's
to
something to help you with repetition and practice. This is the most demanding coach you'll ever have. Turn on the phone, put on the camera, flip it to yourself, do your presentation, and you will be really unhappy. I guarantee it. You will hate that. Good news is you can delete it and you do it again and again and again. And the other good news is almost nobody's watching you that close up. So all of those little ticks that we all have, it's the microscope of torture that we put upon ourselves. It's not a real thing. And the other thing is, listen, I got to say, most audiences are really forgiving. They're on your side. Like if you're giving a presentation, you get lost and you say, oh, wow, I just lost my train of thought. They're with you. Why? Because they've lost their train of thought too. This is humanity. We are humans, right? Perfect isn't the way. Perfect isn't the best. How do you connect with the audience?
Mm.
Connection, connection, connection. And it could be through making a mistake. Could be. People are very forgiving of that. Really
Yeah,
are.
making mistakes shows that we're human, right?
If you handle it with some grace and some humor, it really helps too.
Yeah,
You
right.
know? Yeah. A little humor is really a nice thing.
Absolutely. Who doesn't love a good laugh, you know?
And so I mean, I guess if you're being told your bonus isn't coming, or may not be the best, may not be the
Sure, sure. The right time and place, right? Is there one would you say that the phone recording yourself on your phone is the one practical thing that everyone could do to get better at communicating?
Yeah.
That you would say it is?
Well,
Okay.
it's really practice however you do it. I mean, some people like to do it with a colleague, a trusted colleague. Some people like to do it in a mirror. I find that unnerving myself. I prefer doing it on the phone so I have a review and I can see how things are looking. I think it's
Mhm.
a really good use of the thing we all pay $100 a month to have. You know, I think it's a very useful item. You could do it on Zoom. You could do it on your laptop as well. It doesn't really matter. I also like doing it live with with a group of people. So when I do work, I do a lot of workshops, right? And one recent engagement, I had to train an entire organization, different teams within the org. They were all going to present different parts of a conference.
Okay.
Some were on the floor, some were doing presentations on a stage, blah blah blah. And what I did is I gathered the final day. We had a pitch fest basically. We brought everybody together in one room, and everybody got up and did their presentation, and they got feedback. What did Jordan do well? What could Jordan do better? Very simple, non-judgmental feedback. Okay, observational feedback. That is key when you're doing this sort of thing. And it was really fun, and it was really useful, and everybody came away feeling very energized about the company, about their role in the company, about their shtick, about their, you know, about their patter. It was a very useful and fun thing to do. So I like rehearsing in front of a group, getting that group feedback, bringing people together. I also like it because it makes everybody in the room a coach. They all learn, like, oh, here's how to understand what isn't working. Here's how to talk about that in a non-judgmental, almost loving way, right? Because good feedback is very loving. It is. It's not hurtful. I want you to succeed. I'm going to give you good feedback so that you can get better.
Exactly. I think showing quote unquote fake love is to sit there and say, "Yeah, you did perfect, Joe. Great
Not
job."
good. Yeah, I'm not that
Exactly.
guy. No, I'm not that guy.
Good, good. We don't need more people like
Well, you
that.
don't want to pay me my exorbitant fees and just not help you grow, right? I'm
Exactly.
interested in growth. I want you
100%.
to grow as a speaker, as a person. You know, the other real benefit of the work I do, and I only realized this a few years into it, is that it really builds confidence.
Mm.
If you can tackle this sort of thing, which is difficult, again, for most people because we're not shown how to do it, you get a new level of confidence.
Are you referring to public speaking specifically or just knowing how to communicate effectively in general?
I think both, but I think public speaking is the best entry point because it's the most anxiety. Most of us think we're good communicators. We think we're good listeners. Everybody says, "Oh yeah, I know how to do active listening." And it's like, I bet you don't. I'll bet you think that if you just repeat back to me what I said, you think you're doing active listening. Did you ever get any of those phone calls from people those telemarketers, and they're repeating exactly what you said back to you? And it's like, I'm going to kill you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Don't try. That is not active listening. That is not good empathetic listening. Okay. Good empathetic listening is, I hear what you're saying. Let me give it to you in my words.
Hmm.
See if I got it right. Let me check back with you to see if I got it right. That's much different than what you just said, ba ba ba, right? It's just a very different thing.
Yeah, because when you can articulate it in your own words, it truly shows that they were paying attention. They were listening, you know?
Well, that you've metabolized it somehow.
Actually kind of want to go back for a second. Was there anything that happened in your career where you said to yourself, "Okay, that's it. I'm making this pivot to become a communication coach." Did anything definitive happen or was it a more so a gradual process?
It happened over a period of months, maybe years, when I used to be a magazine editor.
Gotcha.
And I would close the magazine, usually quite late on a Monday night. And I would come out and I would see the people in the office reading similar stories to something that wasn't going to appear for another week or another few days. And I thought, I don't want to get even older and watch this industry go. I mean, it was very clear what was happening, very clear. So, yes, that was sort of the pivotal moment where I thought I need to stop. Well, also being a magazine editor was a young man's job, and I was just aging out of it. I had done it for a number of years, many, many years, and it was great for most of it. But at the end, I thought, this is pointless. This is just not going to survive. And I need to survive. I don't want to be in an industry that's dying, always trying to get the next job and when you've been downsized. Not appealing at all. So yes, that's when I knew that I need to make a move. And then I sort of fumbled for a few years. I didn't really know what I was doing. I had started a PR company with a colleague of mine, and it was not my thing. I wasn't good at it. I didn't like it. But the one thing I knew is that I could train people to give a really good interview and to be better as a journalist. Because man, if you actually get the opportunity to talk to a publication or an outlet, you want to make sure you're quoted. You want to make sure you're understood. So how do you do that, right?
Right,
So
yeah.
again, not natural for a lot of people. They don't think about it. But I knew how to do that. Having been a reporter, having been a journalist and a magazine editor, I know what the reporter needs. So when I do media training, I put them in the seat and I say, look, I'm the reporter. This is what I need. I need quotes. I need stories. I need some data. I need some facts. I need some surprise. Please surprise me. Don't tell me what you think I'm going to, don't just give me the same old, same old. That's what we work on. And now do that story in 3 minutes, do that story in 30 seconds. Let's
Mm.
work on the different levels of how you tell that story for different media, right? Different media. Very, very important.
No, that is extremely important. One of the questions I was thinking is, are there are there any specific habits like I'm a new client, okay? Does someone come to you generally with the same habits that immediately need to be broken, or are people typically different when it comes to the habits they have to break?
Yeah, people are different. People
Definitely,
are. Yeah.
definitely,
I mean,
right? Okay,
everybody is individual, and I don't see a lot of repetition. I think, what is true though is that no one has articulated a group of principles for them, speaking, media, leadership. So I try to help them see them over time. It's not like I sit there and give a class. It's not what I do. As a matter of fact, the way I work is very interactive. So I'll give like a short learning thing, like here's some different ways to open a presentation. Try them out. Try them out in front of me. Try them out in front of the group. See what works for you. Find the thing that works for you. I'm not going to tell you. You've got to find it. And it's much more fun and it's better learning. We like to learn that way. You don't want to
when it's
be
in
when it's you focused, right? I don't have a set thing that I give to everybody. Everybody's different, especially in their communication style. Lots of
right.
different ways people talk.
If I were to become a client, hypothetically, if anyone were, what would working with you look like?
You would first we would talk. I would want to hear what your goals are and what you want to get out of what you're doing. What is the outcome you want? Do you want business? Do you want contacts? Do you want people? Are you hiring? What is the outcome of doing the thing? Right? There's usually there's usually a reason. I ask you to do a self-assessment, like give a good 30 to 40 minutes assessing your own style. What makes you nervous? What have people said? Often I will do a 360. I will say to the client, look, I want to talk to three people who have seen you present, and I will interview them. And then I will anonymize the answers, and we will have a real basis of discussion. That's a really powerful thing to do, right? You get a broad overview and from different perspectives. Because often what people think are their most problematic areas aren't, but the observers know. And I've found that you get a great consensus by doing that. So it takes a little time, not much. I come to them with the assessments, with their self-assessment, and then we go over it, and then we dig in. It's like, okay, let's start. Let's start. And what I'll normally do is say, all right, give me the first 3 minutes of your pitch or your presentation or your talk, whatever it may be, and I'll
Hmm.
record it. And then we'll do a session. We'll go through various of the different learnings. And then I'll say, okay, now give me at the end of 2 hours, now give me what you said at the beginning. Now give me your version of that pitch. So we'll have a baseline. We have the beginning and then we have what followed. And it's usually very instructive. The good news is that I would say 99.9% of people get better within first 2 hours, which is
Really?
so reinforcing to know that we are all capable of change, quick change, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't last. We all revert to mean eventually, but that's okay. That's why we do a number of sessions. But we always see where we started. And I don't have to say much. It's right there,
Right.
right? I don't have to be judgmental. But trust me, you're going to be much more judgmental of you than I'm going to be.
And we're always going to be our own biggest critic, right? That goes for everyone in every
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
How long would you say, I don't want to call it a program, but how long do people typically work with you?
It depends on what we're doing. But
Okay.
so I was working with one client. She is pitching for funding. She's a very brilliant scientist, amazing scientist, really struggling with convincing uh, that she was having a hard time convincing people that she was a capable leader, even though she is highly capable. She's very accommodating, a lovely person, but she wants to please. And it was giving funders causing a struggle. They weren't sure that she was going to be able to lead this organization. We worked together. We did that 360 I told you about.
Hmm.
I think we worked together for 10 hours over remotely. She has since raised money, is leading the company. We're having a review again today. We're doing a
Nice.
catch up. All the people we originally spoke to are now 100%. I mean, they're way behind her now. So the whole thing changed simply because we did 10 hours of presentation training. Very
It,
interesting, right? That's the most beautiful outcome you can hope for.
that
Doesn't
is
always work
amazing.
that neatly, believe me, but that was very powerful.
No, that's an amazing case study. I mean, to think that a drastic, massive life change could happen in 10 hours with working with you speaks volume, you know? It just goes to
She
show
did a
that you
lot
know
of
what the
work,
hell
but
you're doing.
look, she also did a lot of work on her own. She practiced, she revised, she did a lot of reflection.
Right.
The presentation was only the lens, okay? It was only the lens. In her case, the lens opened to a very wide field of possibilities.
Can you elaborate on that? When you said the presentation was only the lens, what do you mean exactly?
A lot of her insecurity was focused in the way she communicated to a group of strangers. It came through. So it's not like I do therapy, believe me, but the insecurity came through and she would give voice to it as we were going through. And I would acknowledge it and say, yeah, great. We all have insecurity. Let me tell you about mine.
Connecting. Yep, you're connecting with the audience.
Connecting. I want to listen. My insecurity is that this isn't going to work for you. Again, you're paying me money and we're doing all this time and I want to make sure this works. I always want to make sure it works.
Right. Right.
Anyway, that's what I mean by the lens. It was the thing that made her most anxious, and she was really able to acknowledge that and then move through it.
Understood.
Like a lot of our own insecurities, right? Like whatever they may be, acknowledging them, seeing them, and having a coach to help you move through them is a really valuable thing.
I feel like a coach helps you see yourself from an entirely new light and a new perspective.
It does.
And some people, they're always going to think this about quote unquote coaches, but the best performers, the best athletes, the
We'll have
best
coaches.
dancers, everyone has a coach because they help
But they
you.
have a great coach. They have a great coach who I wish I had had when I was, when I was running magazines. There weren't that many of them in the 20, 25 years ago. There just weren't. It wasn't a thing. Today it's a thing, and it's one thing I regret not having had that kind of support. Would have been helpful. Would have been helpful.
Right. I bet it would have, you know?
It would have, and it's also wonder. I really admire people who say, "Okay, I lead this organization, or I do this amazing thing, but I'm not so good in this area.
Mm,
I want to get better there."
mm.
Right? So my purpose, my passion, my drive is manifested more fully. I like those kind of people. I'm that kind of people. I'm
It shows a lot of self-awareness to realize that you are phenomenal in this one area, but you can definitely work on this other area. Most people, not most people, but people who are extremely egotistical will completely dismiss the I have a weakness in this area or I'm not as strong in this area. When really you are stronger because you have this self-awareness to realize you can work on this one area of your life, you know?
This really got you excited.
My passion did come out, yes. There's probably people in my own world that I was kind of describing there, but
I think you were
anyways, yeah.
channeling something there, Jordan.
Maybe a little bit. It's alright, it's alright.
Maybe a little bit. It's also a very indicative body language,
Talk to
which
me
is
about that.
another thing we haven't talked about, right? Is that how people actually use their body, how they embody their own self, their own presence. And that's really interesting too. Sometimes when I coach, if we're doing a group and we're online, I'll ask the people who are presenting to give the presentation, but have half of the audience watch it with the sound off and then reflect back what they saw. What was that person's emotional communication saying? What was that person's body saying? The face, the eye contact, the hand movement. Did it show confidence? Did it show insecurity? Like rocking a lot generally shows you're not so calm. It displays some sort of agitation. So that's a very fun thing to do also. It really shows you the power of embodiment.
Gotcha. Yeah, body language us as humans communicate, what, like 70+% body language? Is it like
Somebody
90%?
came up with that number. Who knows?
What do you think?
Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? But it's a component. It's definitely a part of something. And we're often unaware. The amazing thing about working on a screen is that it's really you can manifest. I can show you immediately what your body language is saying.
Thank you for the case study. I was gonna ask, how do clients typically find you?
I'm a terrible marketer, Jordan. It's usually word of mouth and referral.
Okay.
Um, my website is terribly out of date. It's joedolce.com. You can look at it. Anybody who wants to help me remake it, I'm more than willing to go there with you, but it's usually word of mouth. I will post occasionally and rarely on LinkedIn. If you send me some clips or if you send me the transcript of this, I'll probably put it on LinkedIn, probably late. It's never been a source of clients for me. It really is word of mouth. It's a fairly uh, I guess I'm a bad marketer.
That's okay. A
It's
lot.
okay. It makes life difficult. Sometimes people will do articles on the work I do, or talk. We'll have or podcast like this. Maybe somebody will hear it and get interested and reach out and reach out. It usually
Absolutely.
helps if somebody has a deadline or a specific thing they're doing. A lot of people will say, "Yeah, I really need help in public speaking," but they don't have an urgency behind it,
No
so they're
urgency,
not going to
keyword.
invest. They're not going to invest time, the money. It's really good to have a thing, a deadline, a need.
Let's take a change in direction here. With TikTok brain, as we call it, everyone's attention span is getting a lot shorter. What are some ways we can combat that going forward in our professional world and just your personal life and professional life? What are some things that we can do to increase attention when speaking?
Spend less time on TikTok, perhaps.
Right. Yeah. I personally don't have TikTok for anyone listening.
I don't either. I don't either. But I think it is important to be mindful and respectful of people's time and their limited attention. I really do. So if you can say something in 30 seconds as opposed to 30 minutes, say it and be quiet.
That's actually kind of a common theme that I've realized with interviewing other leadership and communication coaches, that a lot of people, poor leaders, I'm going to be direct, poor leaders tend to beat around the bush when communicating to their employees, their staff, whatever the case is. But exceptional leaders find a way to be as direct and compassionate and somehow also find a way to bring back the importance of what they're doing to the greater good of the company, to the mission, vision, and values, but in a very direct and compassionate way. Would you kind of agree with that?
Totally. I do.
Do you think people tend to beat around the bush because they care too much about the other person's feelings and they're trying to savor their feelings, or they don't know how to be direct without being compassionate and empathetic?
Think they're not clear on what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Mm,
And it's hard to talk about this in general, but if you have to say fire somebody, you can still do it with a certain level of compassion. But
sure.
you have to know why you're doing it. So you feel okay about it. That's maybe a poor example, but I really think that knowing your purpose matters in a presentation, matters as a leader. Plato, Aristotle said that, knowing your purpose and knowing the audience are the two most important things when you're communicating. And
Purpose and audience.
who's to argue with Aristotle, really?
Right. I
And
love
I'm
philosophy.
serious. So a lot of times, part of the exercise is, what is your purpose? What is your purpose in doing this presentation? What do you want to deliver? What do you want to make sure the other person leaves with? The other thing is, look, people have capacity to really leave a meeting or a presentation, and they can only take away three things. They can't take away much more. The brain doesn't allow it. Just doesn't. And that's not even a matter of TikTok brain. That's just a fact. And it's always sort of been thus.
The
So
rule of three, that's a thing just in marketing and business when you're giving
it's just a
presentations.
it's a true thing.
It's three
So
things.
don't leave your audience with a checklist of 20 things to do. Not going to work. Not going to work. Synthesize, distill, you know, make it so that they can absorb it. Have some empathy for them so that you get what you want. How's that?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Who tends to get the best results from working with you? Executives, teams, the VC, or not the VC girl, the scientists that needed to pitch VCs. Would you say individuals like her or?
No, I think it's people who have a passion and have a purpose, but can't quite get to it. They can't quite distill it. There's so many other things going on, or they're so in the weeds of things. So people who are building stuff are really in the weeds, usually. It's really helpful to get them to step back.
Mm.
It's like, okay, step way, and I have methods of doing this. Step way back, and let's start there. Don't start in the middle. So if you're going to start in the middle, fine. But I don't care about all of the different moves you had to make to build this thing. What's the purpose? What am I getting from it? Right. So there's lots of ways to help people step back and see a larger picture. And that's very important because most people who are in the middle of things struggle. They don't know where to start.
And when you say in the middle of things, it's like, okay, I have this presentation due in 3 months. Here's what I have so far. I'm working, I'm in the weeds, I'm grinding. And basically, that's being in the middle of everything, right? What you want them to do is take a step back and say, okay, what is the purpose behind this presentation? Am I
Yeah,
hearing?
what again? Go back to that question. What do you want to give to this audience? Right? What do you want them to take away? What do you want them to do? What action do you want them to do at the end?
I
Start
see.
there. Start there. But when I talk about being in the weeds, I'm really thinking about engineers or people building things. You're in it. You're in the middle of it. You're building a company. You're in it. It's really hard to step back sometimes and say, "Whoa, wait. Here's the purpose. Here's the headline."
I think we can do that just more often in general, kind of be a little mindful almost, of like what you're actually doing, whether it's time with family, working with the client, growing your business. Maybe I'm far-fetched on that, Joe, but just what you said, it kind of resonated with me in that area. Just be more mindful, be more present. Take a step back, realize actually what's going on in your world.
Well, and again, you're facing an audience. Well, I mean that. I mean, you do have a purpose by standing there. And in a way, it's a great privilege to be able to spread your ideas with other people. You don't get that many opportunities to do it. So I say, take advantage of it.
No, absolutely. I definitely agree. Joe, where would people find you when they want to reach out to you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Joe Dolce, Dolce. I'm joedolce.com. I'm on Facebook, rarely. Instagram, a little bit more. Never on TikTok. I'm findable.
You're
How did you
findable. I
find?
like it.
Where did you find me?
I found you on LinkedIn, my friend.
There we go.
Perfect.
There we go.
Joe, we really appreciate you having you participating and hopping on. You articulated your message extremely clearly, and I got a lot of value out of this conversation, and I know the audience did as well. So again, I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate your interest.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening out there, we'll go ahead and leave the contact information for Mr. Joe Dolce in the show notes below. So either in the description of Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, just go ahead and go down there. If you want to reach out, he'll be in there. With that being said, thanks for tuning in, and we'll hope to see you on the next episode.